Respected Sri Siddiqui ji, Maitri Saab, Subrat ji, and very distinguished members sitting in the audience and all that. I think that if I see, and I was listening very carefully, Sri Parna ji and Maitri Saab very powerfully, very eloquently, they have raised the issue. And I think that there is a tremendous amount of about the issue. It is not only the Indian issue, it's a global issue. You go to Harvard, people talk about the same thing. You go to California, Stanford, people talk the same thing. So you go anywhere, even you go to Canada, people talk about something, that how to create the employable people from the educational institutions. But let me try to start by two very powerful statements. And I hope that will put in a philosophical term, it will contextualize the whole conference. The nations are not ruined by atomic weapons. Nations are not ruined by atomic weapons. They are not destroyed by missiles. But nations are destroyed by the poor quality of the education. By the poor quality of education. And that's why if you go to Nelson Mandela, he was the man when he became after independence, when people came from his own tribes and they said that so much percentage should be reserved for this kind of tribe. He said, whatever you are talking, I agree with that, but first of all, let's try to discuss how a very great quality of education can be built in South Africa. And you go to South Africa, you know that if you see the gate, it's very prominently mentioned. So how the quality of education can be improved? It's a major issue, and I think that Subir Burma and myself, we wrote that where we stand in terms of educational standard compared to China, compared to Japan, compared to Korea, where are we? Not even a single management school would be featuring somewhere among 25 schools, you know that. Least we talk about School of Technology, it's much better. We have tremendous sense of pride that we have got so many institutions, but what is the quality? It's a big question. Before I come to that point, let me begin with a powerful wisdom of the management. Begin with the end in mind and then do the backward integration. First of all, are we clear what kind of students we want to groom? Are we clear? Are we clear? I'm not very sure that we are clear. And this I am talking based on my experiences in so many management schools, also being on the board of the universities and IITs, so I understand. I think that, are we sure that? There are 4 pillars of the education. The first pillar of the education is cognitive skill or intellectual quotient. I think that when we talk about the employability, there is a tremendous focus on how to heighten intellectual quotient. And we have done it. In the last decade, if you try to see the power of intellectual quotient, it must have heightened at least about 25 times. So that is one area I think that we have done reasonably well. I'm talking about globally. The second pillar, and a very powerful pillar, is the emotional quotient. Least we talk, it's much better. The major problem in the corporate world is the lack of emotional quotient. Because that's where you may be having high degree of intellectuals, but you don't have many matured people. And I think that somewhere when I see the recent happening in the Supreme Court, I am raising the question, where is the emotional maturity? Where is the emotional maturity? I mean, you go anywhere, and Siddiqui is here, he knows that I am not very sure that people are emotionally matured. Even you don't find 20% people who are emotionally matured. The third pillar is extremely important pillar, and that is known as social quotient. Relating with people, influencing people, understanding society. That is another area where I find that social quotient is another area where I am finding. And the fourth pillar, and a very powerful pillar, is the global quotient. India is no more India in isolation of the globe. I'm not very sure what kind of global quotient we are inculcating among the students, because you find that we are managing the global companies and we are competing with the globe. But the last pillar and the most foundational pillar is, I always call it, quotient of learnability. Quotient of learnability. How much there is a learnability. And I remember very well when I was selecting the CMDs and the EDs in banks, I used to ask one question, only one question. How many books you have read in the last 3 years? The reply used to be, sir, where is the time to read the books? So learnability is one big issue, and what Siparna was talking something about, biggest problem which I see about learnability, that is the academic world. And if you ask my opinion, I find they are very ignorant fellows. And I can say this statement anywhere. And that's why the universities have become the replica of the past. So I would like to say how to develop learnability quotient, first of all among the institutions, and then we talk about that one. If we don't do it, we are going to create buildings that will collapse. If we don't do it, we are going to create bridges, they will collapse. If we don't do it, we are going to create doctors who develop expertise in taking lives, that, rather than curing lives, that. It's a very, very, very big issue. And I think that whole education, globally I'm talking about it, that needs to be very reflective thinking, that. Education is not only information. And that's why person having plenty of information may not be a wise person, that. So if we think about the wisdom part, I think that's this is one area. The second point which I would like to raise, and that we shall discuss how it can be done, I think the first conference about industry academia, Kamal is sitting here, that was done by All India Management Association, AIMS. And I think must have been around 15 years back. And I was the mentor of that conference. So we have been raising that kind of question. Industry, academia, collaboration. Industry and academia collaboration. How much we have improved, I don't know. I'm not very sure about it. I would like to be very frank and very honest. But those who are going to pay the price for the poor quality of education, I'm not very sure whether they are serious. Who pays the price? Not the management schools. Market is such large that they would be getting students, and they would be grooming students, with the right kind of or wrong kind of. Industry is paying the price. How many Siddiqui is there in the corporate world? Do you know that when we started building HR program, and that became the #1 program in the country in MDI, I think that it was done under the leadership of Siddiqui. And I remember that he brought at least about 10, 15 people from the industry. They worked with the faculty. They spent time. They also developed the concept of mentoring and those kind of things. Where are such kind of people? So I would like to say that if we talk about academia, we can talk tons about that where we have miserably failed. And Siparna said that why should I write the cases? Because I'm not getting points. And I would also like to say one thing, that we all are in a Brahmanical profession. I'm using as a concept. Without writing Vedas, you can never become true Brahmins. See the research component actually coming from the management schools. Least we talk, it's much better. So I would like to say one thing, that these are some of the things. Maybe that I have raised the issues. And I find that once we raise the issue very clearly, then we are nearing to get the solutions. I'm not very sure that we are very clear about the issues. And that's why one study of the Harvard, in 1986, there was a person, 88, that there was a person who did his PhD from Harvard. Later on, he became the professor in Harvard. And he wanted to find out what happened with my batchmates. And you'd be surprised to know that 25% people were found in corrupt practices. 25% people. Around 27% people, they had mental problems. They had the mental problems and all that. I am naming Harvard because Harvard is regarded as Makkah of management education. It's high time professors must ask a question, what product we are going to create? How that product is going to be extremely useful for themselves as well as for the society. And industry people must also ask a question, that rather than putting the blame, I find that on the academia, that they are not doing this one, they are not doing this one, they are not doing this one. Academic world, corporate world must also ask a question. And Siddiqui Sahib, you being here, and I would like to say that this is the one area, if you don't want many patients to be killed by the doctors, many buildings to collapse, I think that you people should think about this one. What can be done? I think that in this perspective, I think that Subrat has done a very great job. I think that maybe by raising the questions, we may get one day the answer. But I think that the job of this conference is to raise the questions. We may struggle to find the solutions. If you find the solution, that's fantastic. I think that Mr. Bedi is here, who is the dean now in Mano Rachana University. So I think that in the first meeting we were discussing that how we can build a course which can be very relevant for all the stakeholders, relevant for the industry, relevant for the students, relevant for the society, and so on and so forth, you know that. And maybe that how can we create the forum where we should discuss about which is relevant and what is not relevant. I remember very well when we began the first MBA program in Banaras Hindu University, and being the young person, actually, I was given the job that why don't you create the syllabi. So I took syllabi of Stanford, you know, that Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Princeton, and I was building the syllabi. And I was busy, so I couldn't go for the morning tea. So the professor came and he asked me that, भाई तुम दिखाई नहीं पड़ते हो आजकल क्या कर रहे हो? तुम क्या बताया गुरुजी BHU में तो गुरुजी का कॉन्सेप्ट है ना, गुरुजी मैं तो भंडारी साहब ने काम दे दिया, इस पर मैं काम कर रहा हूँ. He told me something very interesting. बेटा तू कुछ भी सिलेबस बना ले, हम तो वहीं पढ़ाएंगे जो हमको आता है. I am saying something very frankly to my academic community. हम तो कुछ भी टॉपिक दे दे हमको तो वही पढ़ाएंगे जो हमको आता है. I think that Siddiqui Sahib I think that you can take some kind of, again, whatever you did actually in MDI, in building the courses and those kind of things, I think that there is a need, and I think that we should do something about. And I would be also suggesting that National HRD Network, Subrat, and I think that maybe that UN Compact, they all are sitting here, they must join together on this issue and move collectively. Because you find that India is a land of tribals. The tribals don't move together. One tribal is more busy in killing other tribals, you know that. So that's why when Siddiqui San, he took over actually as the president of National HRD Network, I suggested why not ISTD, why not NIPM, why not these institutions must come together and create a very powerful forum. But we are busy in creating forums, and we are beating our own drums. I am not without asking whether we are doing something great or not. You may think that I am becoming slightly critical, you know that. But I find that Chanakya, while advising the kings, he said one thing, that keep the critic around you. And once also it happened in Mahabharata, when Vidura was thrown out by Dhritarashtra, and the Bhisma for the first time he went and told Dhritarashtra, he always used to call him king, but that was the day he said, "Arey मूर्ख, तुमको राजा किसने बनाया? एक तो सच बोलने वाला था, उसको भी निकाल बाहर कर दिया." I think that we should do self-examination. We should be self-critical. Every school should be self-critical, that whatever they are doing, whether they are doing relevant things or not relevant things. I think that I would like to thank Subrat for taking initiative for this kind of conference, and also thank Siparna and my friend. I had the pleasure of working with him in two institutions, MDI as well as IMI, that who gave a very powerful perspective, powerful context to be discussed. And maybe that last session we will discuss what concrete things can be done. So I'm not talking about what concrete things can be done. I'm just raising the question, and maybe that in the end, I hope that when we have got the sessions about collaborations, that is one area where we can take about some of the things and how that can be pushed further. Thank you very much, Subrat. And I think that, thank you very much for a very, I think that I can see that though I was critical, but you were giving very rapt attention, and that's really something. Thank you very much.